Today you're here with David Whillas at Topaz Subsea, and we're going to have a quick look at the Blueprint Subsea USBL Seatrac tracking system. Okay, so in the box you'll find the GPS puck. Of note, the board rate for these is 4800. I usually put a label on there so if anyone's in doubt they know straight away what it is. We've got our power supply for the transducer, the manual, we'll get to that later, the transducer head. Now underneath here we've got the power and ID LED. Also of note is on the front you've got two small arrows with the line which gives you the forward position, so that should always face the forward of the vessel, front of the vessel. We've got a stainless bracket. When you mount this you need to mount it so that the LED is visible. There's a couple of mounting screws. We've got the deck lead, 20 metre deck lead, and we've got the USB 232 adapter and plug, power plug. We've also got a spare lead here as well which you can use to plug into the modem head if you want to change the ID or check any settings. Okay, some things to consider when you're mounting this transducer head is, number one, make sure that you've got the two arrows. If you're mounting this on a vessel, these need to face the front of the vessel. So that's really important, otherwise you're going to get confused about exactly where you are in relation to the vessel. If you're on the dock, it's not so critical, you can just angle this down in the water and usually you can figure it all out, it's not a problem. But on the vessel, it's very confusing if you've got this the wrong way around. The other thing to do is make sure on the vessel, if you're going to mount it on a vessel, that it's below the hull so it has clear line of sight to both sides of the vessel. If you mount this so that the side of the vessel, it's not clearing underneath the vessel, you're going to have trouble. As soon as the ROV goes to the other side of the vessel, it won't be able to see it and you won't get any tracking. Really important to remember about the line of sight. If this can't see in a straight line to the modem head, you're not going to have any tracking. Here you can see we've already got the Seatrac modem head mounted onto the top of the SRV8 with the RJE mounting bracket. Underneath the modem head you'll see a flashing green light which gives you two indications. One, the fact that the modem head's got power, and also it tells you the ID number that's set for the modem head. You also notice on the front there's two small arrows with a line. This is the front or forward for the modem head. When you mount the modem head you need to keep in mind to have it as high as possible or as far away as possible of any other equipment that's going to interfere with line of sight back to the transducer. As you can see here, if the transducer is ahead, forward of the ROV, and you're quite high up in the water table or at a shallow depth, you'll have trouble getting tracking because the sonar head is going to block line of sight to the modem. Just to keep that in mind. There's not a lot you can do about this situation. You can try and mount this a little bit higher if you continually have trouble with that, or just bear it in mind when you're tracking. So with device manager open, we're going to plug in the GPS to the USB and take note of which COM port it is. So you'll have ports COM LPT, prolific USB COM5. That's the GPS. Then with the transducer powered, which is visible by the green light flashing, we're going to plug that deck lead into the USB as well. COM4. Take note of these because we'll need these for later. Okay, with the SubNav software open, we go into configure. Okay, something not to forget at the start when you're configuring it is to, under the options here, set use Seatrac position rather than having it set as use GPS position. If you don't set this, it's not going to show you where you are even though the Seatrac is tracking you. First off, we'll set the GPS. So as we previously discovered in Device Manager, the COM port was 5 for the GPS. You'll then need to change the baud rate if it's not already set from the other numbers to 4800. If you click that, you should see straight away the GPS is starting to get some satellites. We're then going to set the Seatrac transducer head. So you need to set the ID number first. From the factory they generally come as 15 for the transducer, so we'll set that to 15. We then need to set the COM port number, which we previously saw was 4. You should straight away, if it's connected correctly, you'll see the data lights blinking here on the USB to adapter, serial adapter. You'll also see information across this USBL info where it's telling us, you can see it changing as we roll it around, the heading and pitch in the roll. That tells you that you've got the transducer correctly talking to the SubNav software. Then all that's remaining is telling it which beacon to track. From the factory they generally come as 1, so select 1 and then it will start to try and ping beacon 1. So 15 and 1 are the defaults. Try those first before anything else, unless someone else has changed them. We're now ready to start the software, connect to the vehicle and start tracking. So we're here, we have the USBL beacon. We're testing in the test tank, which can be a little difficult, but if you manoeuvre the RV around, usually you can get it to track in the tank. Sometimes you need to shift it around a little bit to get a signal, but as you can see here, we've got the transducer info. We've also got a GPS position. Once the beacon is pinging, you should see green indication here, that and also GPS position will appear, the corrected position of the ROV in relation to the transducer. If it's not tracking, you won't get this indication down here, and you won't see any green indicators of both here and also information in here. Okay, that completes setup and running the Seatrac. There's a couple of other things to consider. First one, and one of the biggest things that trips people up, is you need to make sure that you have the sounder on the boat turned off if that's possible. If you're in shallow water, anything 50 to 20 metres or less, most sounders will drown out a lot of the tracking transducer signals and stuff like that, so you'll get very erratic if no tracking at all in some situations. Not always, but quite often can happen and stuff things up. Another thing to consider is if you're getting consistently bad results when you know you should be getting better results, you may need to calibrate the transducer head. If you go to page 18 in the manual, it has clear instructions on calibrating the HRS. To do that, you'll need to install Pinpoint from the Blueprint Subsea website, and if you go into the menu and scroll down to the Seatrac software list, you will find Seatrac Pinpoint. You will find a piece of software called Seatrac Tools. With the modem head connected to the PC and powered, with the correct COM port selected, you can then go into settings, HRS, and it has everything you need in the manual to follow the instructions to calibrate the HRS. This is not always needed, but quite often in different parts of the world, or for whatever reason, we've had a lot better results by carefully calibrating the HRS, which involves selecting a couple of things in the software and then very carefully rolling this around to reach all the limits that it can in the software. Otherwise, apart from that, remember line of sight. If it hasn't got line of sight, it's not going to work. If you're on a wharf with a big steel background or other things like that, you'll get multipath errors. Or if it's on the side of the boat and the ROV is on the other side of the boat and this can't see it, it's not going to work. There are quite a few other things to cover, including putting in the maps and setting up pinpoint if you don't want to use the SubNav software. We'll cover that another time. Both pieces of software. It does help if you have internet connected to your laptop or computer, because it will then load Google Maps if you've got a GPS fix of where you are. Good luck and see how you go.